this session, we're going to hear about a couple of new business and investment models for Rewilding Scotland, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Dr. Jeremy Leggett of Highlands Rewilding and Julian Matthews of Real Wild Estates Company. So, elevator pitches, please. Jeremy, tell me about Highlands Rewilding.
Well, by way of background, I'm a climate and society campaigner. I've been campaigning on climate for 30 years. I'm dead worried about it. But also the social aspects of this. I don't think we'll ever beat the climate and biodiversity crisis without the full fighting engagement of local communities, anywhere in the world. So as a founding member of the Green New Deal group way back in too far ago, I'm very interested in the social aspects of the rural Green New Deal and how that can be brought to play. So a couple of years, 1 year ago, I was lucky enough to sell a solar energy company, which I set up because of climate campaigning. That gave me a few £1 million, and I was able to cajole a few of my mates to join in with putting some more equity, some additional equity into something we call Bunloit Rewilding Ltd, and that for 18 months, as you know, has been doing natural capital verification science, because I do, everything we heard this morning is really important, and if we can speed up the verifiability, investability of all this, then we will help everybody. So we're trying to do that in the Bunloit estate. We've been doing it for 18 months. We launch a report later this week, and next week. And then Highlands Rewilding is an effort to scale that process. So we will try. We want to see rewilding scale, and we bought a second estate, and we will try and scale that, not being silly about it, but just to be able to make a growing contribution. So that's the elevator pitch. Sorry, probably
I think we're probably at floor -3.
Yes, yes.
But thank you very much for that. Julian, tell us about Real Wild Estates Company.
So it was born out of what I call naturenomics, and I've spent my life in working in conservation and wildlife around the world. And what I've discovered is actually some of the best conservation that I've seen happen around the world has been happening with both community conservancies, but also through private funding. And we have a big crisis going on here. So let's put together a service provider, really, for people who want to help nature recover. And if we can make that a viable, investable business model, then we will save our nature. If we don't, we're going to be in big trouble. We know we need private sector funding. How can we get the levers of industry, of private finance, to make it worth their while to get out of bed and invest in nature restoration? And that's a very exciting proposition. That's really what we are attempting to do.
Brilliant. You got off at floor 4.
Excellent. Well done. Congratulations.
Could tell you a hell of a lot more than that, but anyway.
Both of you are taking measurement approaches, so very much responding to that discussion that we were having this morning around the idea of gathering decision-grade data. Why is that important for you, Julian?
It's critically important for us. There's no way anyone's going to invest or put their money into landscape restoration unless they have metrics, and metrics are a big problem. So we've got 4 specific metrics. There's an ecological metric, which we're going to call bioabundance, and that means a holistic approach to what's in what's named, as opposed to counting ospreys or whatever it is. We're going to very much focus on everything that's in that landscape and the increase in everything that's in the metric, and that's something we just work with. But also 3 others. One is job creation and community support. We'll have a metric for that. We'll also have one very much for the monetary valuation as well. So those are key metrics for us in anything that we do.
And Jeremy, why are you doing so much measuring at the Bunloit Lab?
In the early years of the solar solutions revolution, which of course I lived through with the solar century, in some ways it was analogous to where we are now with the nature-based solutions revolution that we need. And in those early years, the story was the same. And the financial institutions would say, we can't get out of bed for less than £50 million, and anyway, you can't, we need proof of concept, and, you know, poor things. Were singing the same song they're now singing about nature-based solutions. And so what got us through that was doing the proof of concept. And that was quite easy to do with solar energy. You just had to deploy it and say, come and have a look at this. It's working under cloudy skies.
Yeah.
But here, it's the same thing, you know, is going to apply, I think. I wish it didn't have to apply. I wish governments would just tell them, you know, we're on a war footing. The peat people need £2 billion. You are going to give it to them. You know, that's what I think we need with the gravity of this crisis. But given that that doesn't seem to be happening, then we can accelerate that with really good granular science. And after 18 months at Bunloit, I really, of course I would say this, wouldn't I? But I commend our report to you. It's fascinating. And, you know, I'm really bullish about being able to, you know, people like us being able to make a contribution.
We've talked this morning about the importance of involving people and communities. Jeremy, we saw the Highlands Rewilding video this morning, so that's an interesting mechanism for engagement. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I mean, that's a thrilling aspect of that second estate in Beldorney will be owned by people, by, you know, mass ownership. So that's how we're going to start the whole process, and I hope that will be retail investors as well. In other words, people that aren't that affluent who want to co-own rewilding land in the place they live. So there's that aspect that's exciting, and we're pushing that very hard, but also local involvement. When we announced that we would be having this COP26 so-called Forest of Hope, that was their idea, the Innovation Zone's idea, and we readily jumped on that. The local community association sort of socialised that in their group, and 3 farmers, neighbouring farmers, said, can we join in? Can our farmland be? And then the Cabrac Trust, which is a local community organisation, charity, said, can we run with this ball? We'll bring everyone to the party all the way up the Upper Deveron Valley. So, you know, straight away, within just a few months, there's the possibility of really meaningful local community activity and engagement and involvement in change.
Yeah. And Julian, you said that jobs were a KPI.
Totally.
So tell us more about that.
So, you know, very much when rewilding gets a bad rap, as many will hear and hear, for assuming that it's about throwing people off land. It's absolutely not about that. It's actually about bringing back, about opening up, about giving access, about allowing communities back into that in a big way. And so very much the business model that we have is about allowing that to happen, making sure that investors understand that when we work with them. And they very much want that too. That's what government's driving. It's what we're all doing to actually give public access to allow people to enjoy the nature for all the different reasons that we know nature is important for us. So we can actually do the restoration, and thousands of people can enjoy the benefits of that. And that's a critical part. And if we can do that, we can also generate the jobs and the community consensus and cohesion to make that happen. So it's a critical part of our structure.
And can you talk to me a bit about what co-creation methods or co-development methods you might
so for instance, there'll be
apply?
lots of enterprises that come off the back of large landscape restoration, and they may well be businesses that we can help other people to develop. So they won't necessarily be developed by us, and they may be from the sort of ecotourism side, or they may be from the service sector, the hospitality side of that, they may be from the guiding side of that, so there's a whole range of businesses that we might encourage it. Don't forget, we're just managing it for them, so we're not actually the owners of those. But those can all be, community run, community owned, individually owned from within the community. We'll encourage that as part of the process.
Thank you. And Jeremy, how is co-creation a part of what you're going to be doing?
Well, it's an evolving story. We're still very young, and one of the ideas that's exciting me a lot at the moment has come from the Scottish Land Commission, and Hamish, who's here somewhere, the suggestion is that we form joint ventures with community organisations, and since you suggested that, my brain has been buzzing. There's so much scope for that, in regenerative agriculture, in energy, renewable energy, and all that sort of thing. We can do that, but it's also possible to take it one step further, because if you own a tract of land, if you're fortunate enough to co-own it with other investors, and you mission driven and everyone believes in that mission, why wouldn't you sell it on to local communities, so you could then create sort of mini versions of that wonderful story that's unfolding down at Langham, where the communities actually own this stuff, and if they're going to do what you would have done anyway, happy days.
And I need to ask you both what you think about the green-led debate that is in the media at the moment and is kind of a topic on social media over COP26. Do you fall into that category, Julian?
I don't believe so. I mean, I'm not here to debate the politics associated with that. That is something that's well beyond me. I'm just the demand from landowners to actually get into nature restoration and make a change and make the change they need to do is immense and strong. And so what we've been excited about is how many people are coming to us to say, look, we know our business model is not working. I buggered up the land. I was at a state very recently that said, quite honestly, this doesn't work. What other options can I have? So we know that's happening, and how we can change that is really exciting. So I don't see it as green-led at all. We are merely providing a service to them to actually make nature restore itself. So whether communities take it over, brilliant. There's not one way to make this happen. Let me tell you, there's 1,000 ways to make this happen. Some communities will be very excited about it, some might not, some might much. Well, I have some private investor will come in and work incredibly well and put lots of money into it and do. I've got one right next to me in my own house in Somerset, where he's put millions and millions and has created 300 jobs from somewhere where there was just one job before. So that sort of thing can happen, and it's incredibly advantageous. So I don't get that argument, but I think we can really make jobs, many more jobs, by restoring our land than we can by what's presently happening, quite honestly.
Jeremy, do you get that badge?
Yeah, someone said to me the other day, "You're green-led light," and I thought, well, okay, I'll settle for that. but when people get to know me, they'll hopefully they would step back from even that, because ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm serious about the things that are motivating me, and I'm on record as saying that whatever I own, whatever assets I own, on the moment of my death, hopefully not anytime soon, will go to a trust, and it will be run for local communities going forward. It will be dominated by Highlanders, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going, much as I love my grandsons, they're not going to inherit this land.
Well, I hope you've stepped up your life insurance since you said that.
Hadn't thought of that.
Julian, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming today and for the contribution to this session. Thank you.
Thank you.